I've seen Steve for a while, so that's great too.
Steve's back.
I
Yeah.
am here, upright, self-propelled, and accounted for.
That's great. So Gary,
All right.
you can
Yeah, we've got a pretty full agenda. You want me to get started?
Yeah, rock and
Go
roll,
for
as
it.
they say. Yep.
All right, let
Mhm.
me
should we start with the big announcement?
go ahead.
We have a big news. So the big news is NASA has officially selected our Solar Eclipse QSO Party grant proposal for funding.
All right.
We got the notification yesterday. So this is a really, really big deal.
That's
Ooh.
good.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo, woo-hoo, woo-hoo.
I know. So
Money
we
is
are-
a good thing. Yeah.
We are good to go. We don't have to cross out the bottom of Gary's cards that say a NASA funded project. we can leave that on there. Yeah, let's do this, Gary. Gary made these beautiful, little fuzzy. On the bottom of there, where it's a little fuzzy, it says a NASA funded project. So we get to keep that on there.
Right. Right. Right.
There it is.
There you
Oh,
go.
there it is.
Or
NASA
cutting
supports
tape, right? Yeah, cutting.
science event.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
it worked out. Yeah, it was a little stressful for various reasons, but it took a long time for hear back. But you know, and of course there are still some questions about the total budget. They may end up asking us to reduce it somewhat. But I think whether they do or not, I think this is really good. You know, I think we'll be able to do what we need to do. So yeah, I think the biggest thing it will get us is I think it'll get us two really big things. One, we'll have an undergraduate student from Scranton who will get some summer funding for this. And then over on Gareth's side, NJIT, we're going to be able to hire a postdoctoral research associate who can spend some time actually thinking about this data from a postdoc level. Gareth, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, to do some analysis with it is what the NJIT component will do. So, which is good because it's, you know, it's nice to collect data and it's good to collect data, important, but it's also important to do the analysis too.
Yeah. So we're all very, very, very excited. So thank you for everyone who helped prepare that proposal. I know this group did a great job, you know, really helping us with putting ideas into it, putting in redlining everything, making edits and suggestions. You know, I really think that was a huge part of this proposal. And I think a lot of the success we've seen with HamSci in these proposals has really come from the community efforts. You know, I get feedback from the program managers all the time that really what we're doing, it's a different way of doing citizen science. You know, where you know, it's not just people collecting data, but people are really contributing to the ideas of the proposals and the papers and things like that. So thank you.
Before all the grad students get gobbled up, we still need some help in doing the Fourier analysis on the TDOA files. And not just extracting those frequencies, but finishing the rest of the analysis, almost like the spreadsheet I used to predict those curves.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad to work with anybody that you could come up with.
I think we can come up with somebody. Let's see. We should. I will have to think about who that best person would be. Let me get back to you. Let's let Gary keep going, and then we'll come back to that, Steve. But I do know we need to get you somebody.
Yeah, well, it's quite a way to open the meeting. It's with a big bang, so that's a good thing. All right, let's take a look at our agenda. As I said, there's a lot of stuff on there today. Probably the last time we'll talk about the Hamvention for 10 or 11 months, maybe. Any other last comments? One thing I did want to say is that the Contest University video is now online. And if you start right exactly at hour 5, you'll see Nathaniel's presentation. So if you want to see what he had to say to the contesting community, you should be able to search on Contest University on YouTube and find that. And thank you, Nathaniel, for the plug at the end too. That was a very pleasant surprise.
You're welcome.
Very pleasant surprise. Especially since
will
I probably
say
had a lot of
that,
buddies out in the audience. So
I will say we had a lot of traffic at the booth.
Yep, we handled out a lot of
interested
cards. I
people.
know that, so. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was really 2 things, or 3 or 4 things really that made the difference. One is the traffic in the booth and all the personal interactions we all help make. I think a lot of the forum talks, the booth talks, and then especially Nathaniel talked to some pretty large and significant groups and threw some ideas out there for some of these groups, how they can contribute in the future. If you add up all those, what do you call in marketing, Ed? Impressions? There were thousands.
Impressions, yep,
Thousands and thousands. So
yep.
very
Yeah,
successful.
It also didn't hurt that Saturday was cool, so I was wearing my Hamsai coat
Yep.
around the field,
Yep, yep.
having
I've-
people
I've-
ask about it.
I've told people here I've worn it to dinner every night since then, by the way.
You have
Oh,
to order
y'all
a
look-
second one, Ed. You wear that one out.
That one, that's right.
Y'all look professional in the photo, that's for sure. The group shot.
Yep.
Look good.
All right, I'd like to take a look at a couple of numbers because where I come from, the world of manufacturing, if you didn't have numbers, if you didn't measure something, it didn't exist.
Yeah,
So I
speak
think
with
from now on,
data.
I'm gonna start tracking these numbers a little bit. Just to look at some of our Google group memberships. The Hamside group is about 830. The Grapes 125 and the Eclipse group 536, and that's increased by over 200 so far in 2023.
Yep,
So that tells me we're getting some traction in the ways I just mentioned, but also from the website too, because a lot of the web pages have buttons that people can join these groups. So I think that
Yep.
stuff is working. And now that we're adding social media and some other things to it, we'll see. Hopefully these numbers will keep going up.
Yep.
The other things that are important are the event worksheets on the website. Many of our projects have a place where somebody can enter their interest in a Google form, and we're starting to track and keep track of those. So Steve, we've got our first 2 participants in the TDOA event. So that's a start. We need a lot more, but that's a good start. I'll send you a link with that, Steve, so you can see what's in that worksheet whenever you'd like to. The pre-registration page for the SEQP and the GSSC has been up there for quite a few months now, so we're over 220 on that.
21. Yeah, Nathaniel, how many logs did we get in 2019?
I successfully
Six.
processed 570 logs.
Okay, that's kind of interesting. Okay, so these are sort of pre-guaranteed players already, so that's
We
good.
hope so. We hope
Yeah.
so.
And Gary, I've got 2 more people in the local area and up in Abilene area that are in on this as well, so.
Okay. Well, I'd love to get them on a spreadsheet so we could keep track of them and make sure we all don't forget how many we've got going on. So
Yep,
the other thing that's fairly new, because the grape pages are new, they've only been out there about a week and a half, is the hosting a Grape 2 interest survey. I saw 21 names were entered due to that new survey. We've got 12 from the past emails. People have shown interest. And the Grape 1 node list has about 50 nodes listed. I'm not sure how many are active, but anyhow, we're starting to get some decent numbers on the Grape project. I got to consolidate these things, remove a few duplicates and that sort of thing. But one of my thoughts is to promote the Grape pretty heavily over the next couple of months and all the things we're doing. And the Grape 2 receiver project is coming along. I think we expect to have those things maybe in people's hands in the August, September timeframes and be ready for the annual eclipse. So this is really gonna be my focus in the next couple of weeks is keeping the grape stuff moving forward. Let's see if there's anything else I had on that. My page is covered up. Okay, that's it. Any questions on the numbers?
That looks really good.
Good, thanks. So our festival is Eclipse on Atmospheric Science. I know we talked a little bit about Central and South America. Nathaniel, I thought somebody said that you were talking to Angel a little bit during the convention. I don't know if this came up in your conversation or not with him.
I did mention it, and he said he's willing to help us in various ways. So he
You'll
he's
have plenty of time.
he's
Yeah.
prepared to hear from us again, I think.
Okay. I will get a
Yeah.
hold of him then. I'm glad you broke the ice.
I ran into Angel and talked with him. Too bad that they're shutting his facility down, but
Yeah.
he's got stuff he's doing.
Hmm.
All right, the other thing that we've got to think about and keep working on a little bit is the scoring committee. I need to put a note out probably in the main ham-side list server. Maybe the SEQP announcement one is too, with a little kind of a hint of the type of people we need and the type of activities we would need, and see if we can beat the bushes in the ham side world to see if we got some people that could help on the scoring committee. Randy and Bob have given me some ideas of a few things, and Jay's working on a document to define what exactly we need to do. So we're getting a little bit of help, which is good, and we're going to need some more. So I'll keep beating the bushes on that stuff.
Yep.
One real minor thing, it showed up a little bit of confusion today. Somebody came up to me or stopped me after the grape thing today. Nathaniel, I think obviously this was the page before I was involved. In our Get Involved page, we've got this map. And somebody questioned me. They said, ham side stations. They said, are these grapes? I said, no, I don't think so.
So this
But they
came
were
from
just-
Christina Collins put this together, and she's the one that's been administering it. So I'm not sure. Yeah, to consider it, we don't want people to think that these are data points or data sources. I think that's a bit disingenuous. You know, I think what it does show is people around the world who have somehow contributed at some point to HamSci, whether
Mhm.
it's been data or something else. So you know, like I think the people in China or in Asia, I think when Christina was doing some of the Eclipse events for eclipses in other parts of the world, those are people that participated in that. So yeah, I don't really know if this is an appropriate way to show participation on here. Um,
What is
Or maybe
the
it's-
color and code?
again, that's something Christina knows.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, because if the generic is that they're all volunteers, then that's probably the better label, Nathaniel. Instead
Yeah,
of stations, the volunteers.
yeah,
Okay, because there's lots of ways to participate.
right. Yeah, so maybe for now, Gary, you can just change the name to volunteers, and then we can decide, like, I don't even know if it makes sense to have this map on here or what we want to do with that.
Right, yeah, I
Similarly,
agree.
yeah, similarly with our hamsci/people page, I haven't quite figured out how to deal with that appropriately either, because I don't think it properly, I think there's a lot of people listed on there who have, you know, said they wanted to participate in the past, and you know,
Yep.
they've had their names put up there, but they aren't really like active now. And then conversely, I think there are a number of people who are very active now that aren't
Yep.
really doing it, that aren't listed. So
Yep.
again, it's not quite an appropriate list.
Yep.
Nathaniel, I think it's very useful to have it there. People like to see their pin show up,
Yes,
but it should be encoded so that you
Yep. Yeah, there's lots of
know
ways to
what
get
people
involved
did.
and obviously play that. Yep.
yeah.
So what I think I'll do, I'm going to change this to ham side volunteers years 2017 through present, and that's good enough, but also vague enough
Yeah.
for now.
Does it make sense to move that over to the people page too?
Yeah, that would. That would, because it sort of ties activities to people and the types of things that they're doing. So
Okay, yeah, I'll look
A
at doing
good
that. I
visual would
definitely
be-
want to change the name, and we'll look at moving it too.
yeah.
You want to say volunteers or just.
Yeah, volunteer is a good
participation.
generic title, I think, so. Sorry.
You could also just say ham site participation.
Or contributors, because some of the people may have
Contributors.
contributed
Mhm.
data once, and that's
Mhm.
it, so.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that's a good term.
Yeah, contributors, right, because I'm one of the ones on there, and so that's how I would say it.
Okay. That's cool. That's easy to fix later. Okay, good enough. I also want to recognize and thank Mackenzie because she did a lot of work to get stuff out on Facebook and Discord as I was sending her pictures over the weekend.
Thank you,
So I know,
Mackenzie.
Mhm.
yep,
I followed it. That was good.
That was good.
Thank you. Also, Gary, sorry. I was curious if there's any more pictures from Hamvention that you wanted me to post about, or if you sent me all of them.
I have more photos from Hamvention.
Could you send them to me, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Oh, also, did you want me to post about the announcement from NASA, the NASA grant,
Sure,
Nathaniel?
that sounds wonderful.
Okay,
Mhm.
I'll make a post about that too.
Thanks.
and then I'll get you some ideas on the grapes too, as I'm working on those grape files this week. One
We
of the
had
things we talked.
we had a standing room only crowd for the Hamsci forum too, so that was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice to show.
Yep.
Another thing we had talked about is we crank up at some point the Hamsci speakers forum, or I forgot the name that we were gonna give that, a speakers bureau. As we talked about having a standardized deck of Hamsci and festival slides. And I actually think we're getting pretty close to that. I took what I had done for the Hamsci, for the forum and Hamvention. I added in, Nathaniel, some of your best slides with the 300-kilometer moving eclipse paths
Hmm.
and some of the science questions in there too. And that's what I'm going to give to the WWV group tonight. And I
That
think,
sounds great.
yeah, and with Dave Swartz being a teacher in the past, or still is, he's probably good at making comments that back to me. So then once I do that, we can share that with the group and you guys can see if it's something we want to adopt or modify or whatever. But I think we're getting close on that. Another thing also in the publicity area, Rachel's got some ideas in the great publicity. I was talking to her a little bit after the meeting this morning.
Okay.
She had a kind of a neat idea. She says, you know, a lot of people, she always talks about them younger, would like to into things called badges. They're just images, but they could put them up on their QRZ page. Like, you know, I've uploaded, 1.2 gigabytes of Grape One data, and you get to the 1 gigabyte level, you get a badge. You get to the 5 gigabyte level badge, you get a badge, and so on and so forth. So that's an idea we're tossing around and how we might implement something like that.
Okay.
Just something a little bit different for the grapes.
Also with publicity,
Yep.
this week was the Citizen Science Convention out in Arizona, and Gary worked with Ha Hua to create this thing called a zine, and Vince Ledvina from Aurorasaurus sent me a text just today showing the zines that were handed out over at SitSci, and they were apparently very well received and popular. So you can see there they are.
Yep.
So that he said they got handed out and they included the SEQP and the grape and little pictures of the eclipses, the heliophysics big year. So even though we were not physically present at the Citizen Science Conference, since we were all at Dayton, we did get our message out there.
Yep. That's something that we should move Mackenzie over to Facebook and Discord as well.
So I'll include these photos in the Hamvention link that I'm about to put up.
Yeah.
Here's here in the chat are my photos from Hamvention.
Don't forget to hit the
I
save
don't-
chat button. You can go back and look at those later.
Yeah, right. Doing that now.
Okay, awesome. I'm glad that was successful. All right.
It's great.
One thing I know we haven't talked much about, we've talked a little bit about, we haven't taken the action on. We've been going back and forth on whether or not Hamsci has a Twitter account. And Mackenzie definitely definitely found it last week. She sent me a screenshot. It's got our Hamsci logo, the picture of Nathaniel, you and your buddy up on the roof of your house and all that sort of stuff. And I think the
Yes.
last post was in 2019. So if so it's a little bit dormant, I guess you could say.
Yes.
I got a question for what you just said about save chat. I don't have a button for that. Where did it go?
When I bring up chat at the bottom, there's 3 dots. There's a more button. And that's when I click on that,
Ah.
it gives me a save chat.
Thank you.
Yep. So the thing I don't know and understand about Twitter, because I don't use it, is how often, I mean, it'd be another channel for us, but how often do you have to post things to make it at least relevant, or if people are gonna want to follow it or retweet them or something like that too? I don't have much of a feeling for that, because we don't really have material that we can put out every day. We're not doing something that at that rate, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Experience here is probably if you're linking at the same frequency as Facebook and Discord, I think you're probably okay. So hopefully the audiences will be a little bit more differentiated. So should work in our favor.
Nathaniel, do you own the Facebook page? Do you have all the logins?
Yes,
Oh, sorry, not Facebook. I mean
Twitter,
Twitter.
Twitter. Mhm.
Twitter.
I do.
Could I post it on as well? I would just cross
Sure.
all the stuff from Facebook and post it on Twitter.
Yeah. You just have to remember how to access it. It's twitter.com/Hamsci or
Yes.
see if I can get in. You can keep talking. I'll work on accessing that. It's got to be here
Okay.
somewhere.
Yeah, one thing I'll fill in for a little bit of filler. Nathaniel made an interesting comment during Contest University, and then some people came up to me too afterwards about the signal reports that get sent in the SEQP. We asked people to provide reasonably accurate signal reports on CW and sideband and so forth. And the true contester says, no, we just want to send 599 and move on. And Nathaniel explained to the group, he said, well, we really don't use those signal reports for the scientific analysis. So if people just want to use 599 and as part of their exchange, it's not going to hurt us at all. And he told the people, the group, to make up their own decision on whether or not they wanted to go with accurate reports or stick with the 599s that the contesters normally do. So it was good to see that clarified. So I think they appreciated hearing that. People understand what the data is being used for then. I think that was about all I had. Is there any other discussion or questions while we're working through some of our
Yeah.
IT issues here?
Yeah, just from a PR standpoint, we were approached by a couple of bloggers and podcasters while we were there. So I'll follow up with them and get them on a rough schedule. So as to where we want to go with it. So we're all, obviously we need to do, we've got our original pitch letter, and we should start to look at how we're going to take that into a formal press release in terms of what we want to do going forward.
Yeah, I think one of the was it Rio? Is it N2RJ? Is that her call sign from the league?
Yeah, Ria's committed already. So we spoke on Friday.
And that's a big one too, because he said she's got 2,000 and some followers or something like that.
Yeah, and she's really active and she's a good promoter for us. So.
Hey Gary, I had
Yeah.
another question. So I know I primarily go to you when I ask you about what is okay to post on Facebook, but is there anyone else you would like me to go to if you're too busy?
I can certainly approve things.
Okay, I can send it to you too, Nathaniel, but I know you both are very busy. So I was
Yeah.
just curious.
Well, my busyness is probably 1/100th of his, so I can tell you that, but whatever works.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm into the Twitter thing. All right, so then I have to figure out how to get you access. I think the easiest thing to do is for me to set the password to something that we can all use, and then the I'll send you some information over email.
Okay.
Mackenzie, would it, I think I know the answer. Would it help if I put Discord on my real phone and we could correspond more in real time? Because I mean, email's obviously slow and it's got its issues, so,
Yes, that would work too.
okay. Because I know you're
Mackenzie.
doing all you can to make this stuff successful, so let me give that a shot. Okay,
Oh, I see. There's a
Mackenzie,
tweet deck Teams thing. I want to add.
Yes, Gary.
yeah, can you send, when you can you send me a invite to the Discord server? I'm on Discord, but I
Yeah.
just can't find it on here.
Do you know your Discord username?
Yes. I see here. Hold on a second. Haven't logged in a long time. I think it's just G Hogston at gmail.com. Open password. It's ghogston at gmail.com. Okay.
That's your username?
Yeah.
There's
Or
supposed to
the email I signed in with. And my username is just AB4GH dash Gary.
Okay, what are the numbers on that?
4762.
Okay, I'll add you.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, let me know if you got a friend request. I just sent it.
Okay.
This, I'm on Discord, but I hardly used it. The username, does it have a hashtag number attached to it?
Yes.
Okay, I can send you mine.
Okay.
You send it through email or through Discord?
It should pop up as a notification on Discord.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for now. Okay, I see at the top, direct messages. Like I said, I'm kind of learning Discord. I see direct messages. Where do I find notifications?
It should be at the very bottom. You should see like a little red dot.
No.
Okay, you said it was, let me try to do it again. 1 second, 1 second.
While we're thinking, I just wanted to give Nick a heads up. We haven't, he's back from his travels. I think he's back on the right time zone. So before we sign off tonight, we'll give Nick a chance once we get through our little questions here.
Okay, noted.
Mackenzie, that's how I'm on there.
Okay, can you type your username in the chat for me, please? You can just send it as a private message.
Okay, run that by you again.
Can you send your username in the text box at the bottom? Like on,
Okay. Yeah, it's username all the way across is AB4GH dash Gary, Gary, hashtag 4762.
okay, is the G capital? Because that matters.
G is capital, correct?
Okay, I'll try it
Yes,
again.
capital. I just sent, that's how it appears.
Okay, I sent it to you again.
I'm still missing it on here. If you send it, I'll get with my son when we get off. He's a wizard at Discord,
Okay,
and I'll say, okay, where do I find this invite?
All right, let's hear from Nick. I know you've had some ideas about reaching out to the medium wave community. Nick, why don't you fill us in on some of those details?
Okay, okay. I didn't see it on the agenda, so I've not actually sort of got things lined up exactly. I've also had some minor discussions with Ed about it because I'm not really quite sure, where he and I are going to be interfacing on this because he's got, he's doing a number of public relations things. Anyway, I sent him something and I'll see if I can bring it up quickly
Yep.
and share the screen if that's okay. Let me just take a look again. And it's just a text file at the moment. Let's there we go. Okay. Okay, so let's bring that full. Okay, so back to sharing the screen. Here we go. The sharing screen is, whoops. There we go. Okay, does that come up?
Yep.
Okay. So essentially, this is something that I initially thought would just send to the medium wave clubs, and you know, and it's essentially you know, telling them a little bit about you know, the radio propagation possibilities of the eclipse, and asking for volunteers. I don't know, you know, like you can probably read this quicker than I can read it out. So maybe I'll just leave it up for a moment. But the idea was, as I say, that first of all, start with the medium wave DX clubs. There are a couple of blogs and so forth that are, you know, sort of, you know, well known to medium wave DXers. Not everybody in the medium wave DX club, and this would just be a way of, you know, sort of gauging interest before actually getting down to the nuts and bolts of what sort of equipment you should be using, what sort of, you know, what sort of approach you should use, whether you should be, you know, sort of recording also at sunrise and sunset and so forth. So basically, I'll throw any questions, any suggestions.
Yeah, I guess my primary question was who the list is going there. What's your, is it a list that's different than the one that, for example, I've compiled on SWLs and stuff like that regarding the Facebook
Yeah,
pages?
it would be different from that.
Okay, that's a key
because,
question for me, right?
yeah,
Okay.
because the, you know, like the list of SWLs, a lot of them are very, very general indeed, and more inclined to shortwave DX. I did send you a small subset of that list.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, which was there's a medium wave blog in Europe, for example, that has a lot of North American readers. There's SWL in Post, of course, and I think there was Medium Wave Circle, which is a British DX club, but also with North American members. But really, it was sort of going for the groups that, you know, essentially would already be likely to be interested in this. They're serious DXers. They're also somewhat interested in data collection and so forth, rather than trying to, you know, basically introduce people to medium wave DX or propagation research, which I think a lot of the SWL.
But my primary concerns were deduping. Okay, so we don't step on each other's toes twice.
Okay, well,
and also timing in terms of distribution. So
yeah. As far as this was concerned, I was thinking of basically doing it this summer, probably early August or something like that.
Yep, that's fair.
To get interest, and then from that point forward, you know, finding out who's interested, then finding out whether they can actually do what would be useful for HAM-SCI, and even that sort of, you know, like I'm thinking and treading of eggshells a little bit, because if somebody says, well, I'm happy to do this, but I don't have what you need. I'm going, well, you know, like, well, hell yeah, sure, send me the data. You know, it's, you know, I don't want to sort of send, you know, sort of try and drive people off saying, oh, you're not serious enough, sort of thing.
Right.
But at the same time, I really do want to emphasize that, you know, like there's a certain level of equipment and certain approach one needs to take to make it useful. But I don't want to do it in the introduction. I want to do it from the people who say, "Oh, that sounds interesting."
It seems as though your list is a bit more granular than our generic list at this point.
Exactly.
So that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
That's good.
And I mean, essentially, if you know of other things, places where, you know, this would be useful, that would be great. And I'm hoping, you know, by going on to a couple of the blogs, that it will also get reposted, and that you know, there'll be other interest elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's a case too, where I guess we need to double check the list to make sure that our blogs are not duping each other. So
right, yeah, and as I say, I did send you the ones
and also
that
frequency
I
of
was proposing.
messages. So.
Yeah,
I'm good with your timing in terms of looking. I'm speaking for the group here, but I'm good with your timing on August. I mean, I think, you know, just in terms of looking at most of the PR, it goes out in that window around Labor Day US here. So so that's good.
Yeah, the August was also just simply because the medium wave clubs tend to throttle back, and medium wave DXers to a large degree throttle back a lot in the summer months, because they're low band and conditions are often very bad. So, you know, like they actually, you know, like the information doesn't come out so regularly. So if they do it in early August, then there's, and repeat in early September, then I suspect that, you know, it'll get people's attention at the right time, rather than sort of pushing it right up to the deadline sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and for the group as a whole, I mean, I think basically right now is, I think what we've looked to compile are really 3 lists. There's the SWL list, okay, which now Nick has a subset of. There's a podcast / blogger list, which we purchased from a third-party source.
Okay.
As you remember, we looked to approve the expense a
Yes.
couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
And then lastly, I'm in the process of putting together a public broadcast list, primarily television stations that are in the path of totality for the annular eclipse, so that we can
Yes,
actually look
I
to
saw
get
that.
some maybe personal appearances. So there's 3 moving parts right now, and we're
Okay.
looking to build those lists.
Yeah,
3.5
yeah.
now with Nick's on top of it. So
Okay. Yeah, as I say, I think this is more a specialist side of things. So, like, whereas a lot of what you're talking about is getting people interested, which hopefully will find, some radio
Yep.
amateurs who haven't heard about HamSci and
Yep.
what they're doing,
Yep.
and bring them on board. So any suggestions or criticism?
Yeah,
as to
Nick, a
what I've
couple of
actually done?
things.
Yes.
First, the end of the first paragraph, bandwidth is 1 word,
Okay.
and it's misspelled
That's
this is a
valid
tough
also.
crowd, Nick. So
right
Yeah,
at the
good,
end.
good. I mean, yeah, okay.
And then, we want to have this coordinate. And it's 1 word.
Yeah, but as I say, I'm putting
Oh.
it the way it is.
Oh, I see. Well, you
Yeah.
have it bandwidth up at
Yeah,
the top.
okay.
The other thing is that we want to get as many of these receivers GPS locked as
Exactly.
possible, so that we
Yes.
could get Doppler information. And we want to
Exactly.
coordinate with our existing AM Doppler project at Dartmouth,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but
Yeah, and
we've got an active system that should be.
actually,
taking
that
data
would
as
be
well.
one of the things to talk about. As I say, this is trying to bring interested parties out of the woodwork, and then finding out what they're capable of, but also let them know about your project, because
Right.
because this is definitely relevant to what these people will be doing. And right now I'm not sure that they actually know anything about this at all unless they're involved with HamSci, and even specifically the Eclipse portion of HamSci.
Right.
So okay, anything else?
good.
So one of the things I'm thinking about is if the data is going to be collected, I guess I would say on HamSci's behalf, and Nathaniel had introduced to us, I believe it was mathematics professor at the University of Scranton a few weeks ago that might be involved with this. If that's the case, I would think we'd want to document this part of the project on the HamSci website, just as we've done the other pieces of the festivals. I mean, we've got 1 page for the contest, we got 1 for the TDOA, 1 for the grapes, or 2 or 3 for the grapes, and then there would be 1 for this one, all kind of in the same format, so we could
Okay.
drive people back to the HamSci website and get all the necessary information.
Okay. Maybe then I should sort of off list, so to speak, get in touch with you and find out what sort of information you need, what sort of formatting you need, and so forth. And we'll try and get something together. But yeah, and and hopefully there'll be some interest. I mean, in 2017, just sort of grabbing people who are already doing this without thinking of HamSci at all. We've got, I think, 7 or 8 people. Now there may well be more in advance this time, but I don't think we're going to be talking like dozens, but we'll see.
Yeah, actually, just looking here too as well, on your last graph in terms of, to check out the HamSci site is also a reference to actually sign up for our list as well. Okay, so I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that's right. We'll either create a form on there where they can enter their interest, and we can at least have recorded who they are, where they were, and give them a button to join the HamSci mailing list and that sort of
Because
thing.
I'm envisioning the list as well in terms of looking at press releases as we go from here to Eclipse Day, in terms of keeping everybody informed.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that brings up one other thing is that a while back, Aiden was expressing interest in helping out with this as far as graphics and so forth are concerned. And I don't know, is this something I should be sending to her, you know, to sort of see if she had any suggestions or if she has time or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Remind her what you talked about and for sure, the more technical help we can get, I think that's a good
Right,
thing.
yeah, because the only graphic I'm going to enclose with this is just one of the two eclipse paths. You know, just, you know, basically to bring people's attention to the fact that those eclipses and where they're going to be, you know, just in case it's news to them. Okay, well, maybe I should stand back at this point unless there's anything else coming up.
Well, I will, I'll send you my thoughts, Nick, on how we'd want to organize it for the ham site website, and then you can
Okay.
see what information you have, what gaps we might have to fill in, and maybe it has to be a little different than what exists, whatever, but we've got some time to try and make this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, exactly, sure. Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's see if I can.
I have a question. Is this
Oh,
similar?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is this similar to what was done in 2017 with Christina? Is this the same idea of making these recordings and submitting the recordings?
I'm not sure what was done in 2017 because I actually came into this a couple of years later, you know, when I had the recordings from Medium Wave and got in touch with Nathaniel and asked him if there was any interest in them.
Okay,
So-
I'll look at it and see if I still have the information. If I do, I'll send them to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, again, I stand by. So I'll stop sharing.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was worthwhile. I'm glad we brought that up. Okay,
Oh,
is,
yeah, incidentally, I also, Nathaniel, did you get my questions about, you know, modeling and so forth?
I did. I haven't had a chance to respond yet.
Okay, that's fine. You know, I just sometimes with email, one sort of wonders whether it actually got through, but okay, I'll stand by again.
Yeah. All right.
is there anything else we need to tidy up or bring up before we bring the meeting to a close tonight?
Let's see. We can review, see if Gareth has any comments.
I have no comments. Nope.
Okay. I can say, Kenzie, I have logged into TweetDeck and I'm trying to find this place where I can manage the team and add members, but I'm not able to find it. What I might suggest is maybe we can bring up Nick's email really quickly and see if we can address some of that, because that might be of scientific interest to everyone in general. And then maybe we can then people who want to leave can leave, and we can spend a couple minutes trying to debug the Twitter access thing. How does that sound?
Sounds good to
Sounds
me.
good. Yep.
Sounds like a plan.
Great. So Nick writes, "Hi Nathaniel. The following was from a discussion on the Hamside list a couple months ago for my African sojourn, but I'd like to pose a couple of questions about it, if I may. I'm not well versed in ionospheric modeling, so please bear with me as I try to understand what might be a limitation of using HF ray tracing software below certain frequencies. I do understand Dr. Cervera's earlier point that the electron gyro frequency will possibly foul up a medium wave raised path, even if the details are hazy to me, but that doesn't seem to be what you addressed. Let's see. So I wrote, my understanding is that the ray tracing in Farlap breaks down when the wavelengths get too long for using a ray tracing approach. SAMI3 will likely be able to model the eclipse just fine in the ionosphere, but Farlap may not be the correct tool for how to model medium wave broadcast AM as AM propagates through it. But what are the failure points for longer RF wavelengths when using a ray tracing approach? If during an eclipse one needed to have profiles graded every 100 kilometers, for example, because atmospheric conditions were changing so rapidly, then get to that detail, the ray tracing software would need to update every 100 meters, wouldn't it? But what I'm perceiving is that perhaps the close spacing of the gridded points, recalculating the ray characteristics at each point, which lead to inaccuracies in the calculated position of the rays because they are more closely spaced than the wavelength of the signal. That is, when ray tracing, you need to calculate the position of the ray at some increment that is longer than one wavelength of the modeled signal. So at 1 megahertz, you wouldn't want to update more than 300 meters or more along the ray, for example. Or have I got a hold of the wrong end of the stick? I don't think it's that you need to update, that you don't want to update so often. Like, I think even with the HF rays, you can set the update rate to whatever you want. And I think the resolution will just get better. So I don't think that's the problem. Gareth, do you have any understanding of what happens when you're using Farlap below HF?
I think it works up to a point. Like, I don't think it'll work down to, I think it'll work at the EMF. I don't think it'll work down to like BLF or anything like that. Because there's different modes of propagation. But in terms of there are grids, like Farlap only lets you, has a maximum size on the grid, like the size of the array, right? So that kind of adds a constraint to, so they're talking about 100-meter resolution, but that's pretty small resolution. And I can't remember the exact grid limitation on the array size. I think it's like 400 by 700 by 700 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's the problem. I guess the real question is there any problem with using Farlap for things between like 1 and 1.5, 1 and 2 megahertz?
I don't think there is, but I've never tried.
And even if it gives us results, can we trust them?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, can I interject for a moment here? I mean, one
Sure.
of the things you're trying to do is to prove the veracity of the models. And what I've got from the developer of Farlap is, well, try it, see. He didn't say you couldn't get good results out of it. He just said he didn't know. And given that you're trying to prove whether or not the models work, like probably you should just try it and see. If it doesn't work, then you've got your answer. And then you have to start asking some more questions as to why it doesn't work.
Right.
One of the things that was brought up in a private discussion was that it's quite true that the gyro frequency is down at medium wave frequencies and is going to cause some confusion. But depending on what's being used, and I think it's Appleton-Hartree equations, I mean, they take into account the actual gyro frequency. It's just going to give you results that you have never seen before, and maybe that's exactly what's going to happen. Who knows? You won't know until you try it again. So I say I throw this out. If nobody can say it doesn't work, and here's why, then I would suggest that you try it out and find out whether it works.
I think that's totally reasonable.
My question is, how do you ground truth it? How do you know that it works?
Well, that's the data. I mean, the data is telling you that at such and such a time during the eclipse, you are receiving, like a certain signal from a certain direction at a certain strength, and this is what's happening to the strength during that time period. That's your ground. Well, it's not ground truthing. It's saying this is what the data is. Then you try to apply the model, and like I'm speaking as a complete non-scientist here. It's just saying if you have a model and you say I've applied it to the data, and it doesn't work, or it only works sometimes or whatever, then you have some idea of whether or not the model is even appropriate. But like right now,
Well-
we don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know that you want to be testing it on Eclipse data though.
No, but the thing is that,
One-
yeah,
So
yeah,
we probably want to test it on normal.
exactly. And that
data
may be, yeah, and
beforehand.
that may be one of the things that actually you want to do in asking people to contribute to this, is to say, can you do the same thing at the same time the day before, the day afterwards? You know, then that would give you normal data.
Yeah, now I
and-
need to find out how much ray tracing we have done here at Dartmouth. I know we've done some.
Mhm.
And I'm not, don't know what the results were.
Okay, yeah, and essentially I'm standing way outside, you know, like what I'm actually proposing to do, which is just gather some data. It's just that, you know, like I'd also like, and this is why I'm, you know, sort of, you know, working with HAMSci, is just that I don't really understand a lot of this stuff. It would be interesting to know a bit more about what's going on. You know, so if I can understand, you know, like ray tracing and simulation programs better than I do now, and that would be quite easy because I don't understand them very well, then that would be great. But say I'm right now, I'm just sort of throwing it out and saying, you know, is there any sense in, well, obviously there's a sense in getting the data, but I can't really contribute that much in saying, well, how are you going to process that data? Except that we have this tool in Farlab, you know, with the Salmon 3, and saying, well, let's test it. But yeah, you're right about the ground truth thing. Do you think that's a good idea? Is to say, well, let's gather some data the day before, the day after, and you know, and try it against that. And they have a standard reference ionosphere usually available for Farlab. Isn't that correct?
Mhm.
So you would use that and see whether or not Farlab actually deals with that using the standard reference ionosphere and the same equations you're using in the with the Eclipse data. Anyway, back to you.
So I might suggest, so a couple of thoughts. Let's say that we do decide to, you know, just use Farlap for the medium wave AM as well. I think it would be good for us to come up with a fairly unified approach for doing the modeling.
Okay.
Okay. Something that can potentially be used with AM and with the HF. Because if we have some sort of a unified approach to it, you know, we could potentially apply the same technique over and over again. That's one thought. Another thought is, the way that I've done the data model comparison in the past was we used the NJIT supercomputer to basically run the Farlap ray trace over many different cases throughout the whole Eclipse. And then I was able to plot that data in the same format, in the same way that we plotted the actual observations. And then I just did a visual comparison. I didn't do any sort of I didn't do any sort of you know, real numerical comparison between the two. I just showed, okay, look, this is awesome. It shows it. So I think we need to kind of spin that analysis up again. And I think we have to come up with a plan for taking it to the next step. And so I think we really need to have a science working group to kind of take care of that part.
Okay, but right now, I mean, the really important thing is to make sure that the data is gathered in such a way that it's going to be useful to you with however you plan to approach it.
Right.
Well,
the easy way to make sure the data is gathered in a way that's useful is to record full spectrum data for the AM band in
Yeah.
IQ format, make sure it's time stamped and it
Mhm.
has the correct metadata associated with it, so we know
Okay,
where it was where it was recorded from, what are the characteristics of that particular receiver, make sure we know what time and what frequency. As long as we have that spectrum data, the data will be useful.
okay, that's really all I need to know at this point, because I say really what we're talking about is what we're going to do with the data at a time when we're still worried about getting the data.
Yeah.
So,
So for
yeah.
the AM band, yeah, it's just recording the IQ data.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've covered this before. Like, I think my presentation essentially went through it step by step as well. That just this is what we need, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting the right things. That there's not something that's going to be added by the fact that we're using modeling that we don't know whether it works. At
No,
those
if
frequencies.
you
By the way, I have I'm reading our student's thesis that was done on our data, and she did use FarLab to do the ray tracing.
Okay, that's great.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very good data point. Thank you.
So yeah, so that's really good. So yeah, go collect IQ data. If you probably want to have automatic gain control disabled for any
Yes.
receivers, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you have the IQ data with the appropriate metadata, so you know when it was recorded, what frequency, and where it was recorded, then I think it's useful.
Yeah, no, the agency is actually an important point, and this is one of the things that I'm going to have to deal with when people say, I've got this sort of receiver, I'm going to use this sort of software, because some of the receivers that are in use do have a form of RF AGC. These are SDRs. That, like one of them basically is there all the time. It's the only way the receiver actually works.
Yeah.
But there's another one that will use one kind of software. You can disable the AGC, and it will have to be done that way. But there's another kind of software that you can drive it with that doesn't have that capability. And I just want to make sure that we know that, that people will be recording something that's a receiver that's capable of AGC, and making sure that it's not enabled. Most of the major ones, yeah. Say, go ahead.
It's okay to have AGC as long as it's part of the data. We do that all the time in our rocket flights, but
yeah. But the thing
if it's
is,
not part of the data and AGC is enabled, then it
exactly, and that's the issue. It's a closed book in many cases, either because
so it is certainly simpler if AGC is disabled.
Yeah, and most of the better SDRs, and I think the people that will be interested in doing this will be using the higher quality SDRs. RF AGC is not there. It's the best you gain control you're looking at RF levels is an attenuator setting, and that's part of the data, like a front end attenuator, and that's part of the data. So anyway, we're probably running over time at this point. I mean, it's an interesting discussion, and I think we've sort of clarified a lot of things, but I also don't want to sort of hold people up.
Okay, great. I think, yeah, so I think we should end for here. And I will not be on the calls next week because I'm going to be at a conference in Boulder. I encourage the group to continue meeting and talking about everything you're doing. I think you're on a really good track. I think what we should do, especially now that we're funded, I think Gareth and I should get our heads together and we should have a discussion on here too of like how we're really going to do the analysis. Because I think Gary and Ed and Mackenzie and all of you, I think the PR for getting this going is well in your capable hands. I think we have the whole PR machine going. I think we want to make sure we have like all the ham radio details, like the scoring taken care of and all that stuff. But I think you're really well set there. So then I think the next thing, Gareth and I need to make sure we do is we have a good science team put together and have an analysis plan. And, you know, we do have some funding to hire some people, but NASA, you don't, once you get the award, the actual funding turning on and hiring people doesn't happen right away. So we have to figure out a strategy for dealing with that. You know, right away, we do already have Joe Huba. He's already making the ionospheric predictions. So we're going to have that right away. We have some students that are already working with FARLAP. And I think we would be interested, in addition to having, say, the hired students and postdocs working on this, if we want to identify some, you know, amateurs or volunteers who want to be more on the science side of the team rather than like the PR side. So that would be something that maybe, and then maybe we end up splitting the Telecon into a science side and a PR side, like breakout rooms or something like that. But I think that's something for us to start thinking about.
Yep, good idea.
Great.
Mhm.
All right. Kenzie and Gary, I'll send you some login information shortly. Okay.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
Good call, everyone, today. Thank you.
I'll see everyone in
73.
2 weeks. 73.
Take care.
73. See you next
33
week.
all.